It's time for us to get right into it, people. This is Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1, your love music, love life station. Time to talk about the stories making the rounds in the dailies across Nigeria. And you can be a part of the conversation, as always, by sending in your messages to us via WhatsApp on 0809 444 981. We're also streaming live on YouTube at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. So join the live stream. And of course, this morning, my analyst joining me to take a look at the stories, Gbubemi and AB. Very good morning to you, gentlemen. Great to have you on.
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Lagos. Good morning, AB.
Good morning. Good morning, all. Great to be here. Thank you.
All right. Hope you've had a great holiday so far. Today's day 2. It continues, as it were.
Still on the hunt for meat, though.
Still on the hunt for meat.
I'm accepting e-meat if necessary.
Alrighty, let's get right into it. I'm going to start with you this morning, taking the story from the Punch newspaper, where the Lagos State Ministry of Wealth Creation and Employment has partnered with Govt to organize an employability training program for job seekers. What's your take on this? Because we've had so many different at different times, different instances, and stories and complaints about employability training for job seekers not finding jobs, some job seekers not even being employable, and so on. What do you have to say about this?
Okay, so this is a commendable approach from the Lagos state government. Traditionally, employability training should be included in curriculum of higher institutions, universities and polytechnics. It should be part of, not just preparing people for the gown, but also for the town. But we find that, this happens largely only in private institutions. So many of those who go to public institutions do not really receive any form of employability training. So this is quite commendable because the gap exists. Jobberman is a private firm, started off as a recruitment firm, but now they've also branched into career development. So this training seeks to train at the first instance, 500 people selected across the various divisions of Lagos, and to train them in CV writing, attending interviews, communication skills, the basic skills required for employment. I like the fact that Lagos State has partnered with Jobberman. I remember that a few years ago, I think maybe about pre-pandemic, maybe about 2018 thereabouts, and for some years before that, Lagos State had the Ready Steady Work program, but this was focused on final year students in university, sort of the same thing. And it was a 10 to 13 week program, if I remember quite correctly. And what they did was also partner with the private sector, where they got volunteers, volunteer professionals to come in every Saturday to teach on various aspects of employability. And that also included an entrepreneurship model as well. So this is quite needed. One thing I would love to see, though, is that this program is taking virtual. So 500 at the first instance is okay. If we look at the gaps in the jobs available, the people going into the job market, the people already in the job market, we see that it's a huge number of people. So if this program was also moved virtual, so people could log on, sort of like an e-learning platform, then potentially could reach a lot more people. Lagos state government would, of course, probably need to partner with private sector as well to be able to achieve that if they cannot do that on their own. But by and large, this is a welcome development, and I would love to see other states as well adopt this kind of initiative.
All right, AB, let me get your thoughts on this issue. Now, looking at what Lagos State is doing, it's a very commendable thing, and of course, it's very necessary. Like I said earlier, there's this serious gap in terms of what is needed by these job seekers, these skills that are needed, and they don't get these skills imparted in them. It's just about, okay, go to school, learn, get your degree, and then come out. But how to navigate in terms of the real world, these things are not learned. Now, how much more can be done in order to make this kind of like second nature or part of what has to be learned by those who are still in school and will then get out and start looking for jobs and so on?
I think a lot of this stems from gaps in literally your primary and secondary school education, because I'm sure many of us can remember why write a letter to, write a composition about. That should have been part of your curriculum from primary to secondary school. We're not saying that navigating the job market is easy. And fortunately, there are so many more tools now online, so many YouTube videos that can help. It's a great program, and some people learn better with this kind of hands-on teaching. But in this world today, I think it's almost inexcusable for you not to be able to search for assistance. But a structured approach like this, of course, is going to help many people because it guides them broadly along the route within the approved framework, and you'll get the results you want. So kudos to the government and the private in public partnership. I think that's one of the things I celebrate about this.
All right, fantastic. All right, AB, I'm going to be staying with you right now. Let's take this story here. And of course, it is coming out of the Punch newspaper still. And the Kano State chapter of the Nigeria Labour Congress will be meeting on Friday over the decision of Governor Abba Yusuf to stop the salaries of 10,800 workers engaged by the administration of the immediate past governor, Abdullahi Ganduje. What exactly is going on in Kano? There's been so many things coming out of Kano, and now this.
So you tend to sometimes see this kind of thing happen when a governor from another party comes in, or a governor who's not necessarily on the best of terms with the former governor. Then there's this increased scrutiny on things that happened, especially things that happened very shortly before the old governor goes out. Allegedly, these people were all hired in the twilight of the past administration, 10,800. And it goes actually to the reason for their being hired. If there is a need that they actually fill in helping the work of the government go forward, I should see no reason why their roles are not justifiable. But if it seems that the new governor feels that they were just being hired either as political favors or a further government salary, the former governor is saying is insensitive due to the fact that it's around the salary period. But I think that's neither here nor there. The question is, what are the needs of the society or the government in that state? And do these people actually meet and perhaps exceed those needs? If they do, they can be justified on payroll. If they don't, then there are questions to be asked. And I guess some of those questions are being asked. And NLC is jumping up in a defensive mechanism to say, hey, why did you stop their salaries? I hope they'll get answers that they can work with. But at the end of the day, it's back to that first story. There's a lot of work to be done in a country like Nigeria. There is a lot of unemployment. So if you can put those two factors together, lots of people to do the work, lots of things to be done, then employment should actually be at an all-time low in Nigeria. So I suggest it's a matter of lack of administrative capacity rather than the personnel or the salaries that's at hand. I bet that by the time they have this conversation, maybe some people will come back, maybe not all, but hopefully there won't be disrupted, labor relations in that state for any length of time.
All right. Do you have any comments or any thoughts on this particular incident? Because I remember in I think it was in November 2022 when Governor Adeleke of Osun State also came into office. And I think he reversed some appointments that were made by the outgoing governor, Governor Oyetola then, and it was kind of similar to this one, appointments made in the twilight of his own administration. This kind of rings as a similarity. What do you think about this?
Yes, I agree with you. What I believe is ideally government should be a continuum. And every government is expected to follow the due process in execution of whatever it is that you're doing. So ideally, if Kano State Governor and Osun State Governor at that time, if they had followed the proper due process and it was clear then the incoming governors after them would not have necessarily have needed to rescind their employment decisions. But it is most likely that they did not follow proper procedures. And then also hiring a huge number of employees just at the toilet of the administration is suspicious because, every new administration, has its plans, has its objectives, and to be saddled with a wage bill potentially that they may not be prepared for. So my thinking is, if you were going to hire these people, why didn't you hire them perhaps 6 months before, a year before? If you got to the point where you were almost leaving and you had to hire them, then it wasn't really as important. You could have left that decision to the incoming administration. So it is most likely that proper procedures weren't followed in the engagement of these new employees.
Right, I'm going to stay with you, but before I do that, just to remind our listeners that you can be a part of Freshly Pressed this morning by sending your messages, thoughts, contributions, and opinions to us via WhatsApp on 0809 444 981. And if you're just joining in, we're also streaming live on YouTube at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Yinkabolu sent in a message on WhatsApp, and he says there's never a need for the hiring of 10,000 workers at the end of your tenure. We already complained that the civil service is overbloated, and this is happening. What are they doing? What's their job description? What's the justification for such a number? All right, let's check out the Business Day. This story coming out of the Business Day, Gbubemi, where Canada is inviting 500 healthcare workers from other countries, including Nigeria, to immigrate into the country. This announcement was made by Sean Fraser yesterday. That's Canada's Minister of Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship via his Twitter handle. Of course, we all know the whole Japa syndrome has been a serious bug in Nigeria. And of course, Canada is saying, please come, we want you.
So good news for the healthcare workers, bad news for Nigeria. So Canada has just become one of the Japa options for our healthcare workers. And unfortunately, Nigeria will be the worse off for it because the healthcare workers will take that option. Considering the state of healthcare, especially in the public sector, those who work for state or federal or even local government health institutions, when we start talking about issues such as remuneration, when we talk about the facilities within the hospitals, many of these things are inadequate. So many of the existing health workers are having to work under serious pressure to be able to execute their duties. So, and that's partly because already we're at a deficit in terms of doctors, nurses, dentists, lab workers, all of those things. They've all taken the better option. Many of them have taken the better option to leave. So Canada opening up this option, like I said, is good news for them, bad news for us. When we consider, for example, if we look at doctors, our current doctor-patient ratio as of last quarter last year was 1 to 10,000 doctors. In some other states, it's exactly. In some other states, it's much worse. I have a friend who's a medical doctor, and she's always constantly telling me how some medical institution in the north says, oh, they have only one pediatrician, for example, or they have only one oncologist, where they should probably have maybe like 5. So this is quite worrying. I know that the last National Assembly tried to address this by putting in place an act that would require, medical doctors, for example, not to be able to leave the country until 5 years after, but that is really not a solution. What we need to do is to declare maybe a state of emergency on the health sector, because, at this point, we are in dire need of healthcare workers. The facilities in hospitals clinics, primary health centers need to be bumped up. A lot of money needs to be provided for them. Even when we look at our many of our political office holders and those who have the means, many of them don't seek their healthcare here. They go abroad. So, like I said, good news for the healthcare workers, bad news for us. I would like to see a concrete approach from the current administration regarding the healthcare sector. Many of the healthcare workers will take up this opportunity. So it's 500 workers now, 1,500 workers, I think, in the next 1 month or so. So many of the Nigerians, who qualify will most likely take up this option. Government needs to decide what to do to be able to help us retain the healthcare workers we have, attract some of those who've gone back, and encourage those who are going to become healthcare workers, those already in training, to be able to stay in the country and practice.
Now, AB, I just need your thoughts on this in 30 seconds. When we actually answer the question I was going to ask, saying that, shouldn't the government have, declared a state of emergency in the health sector, as opposed to, our fine legislators trying to come up with a bill in order to keep doctors here, which of course is just putting a band-aid on a wound that requires actual surgery. What do you think about this?
The place where we need to declare an emergency is in Nigerian leadership. Because if Nigerian leadership had one clue, this would not be such an attractive option. Guess what? People have the right to emigrate for excitement, for interest, for work. But many other people take the choice and always have a sense of connection. Many people, when they jackpot, they don't look back. So it is the place that needs a state of emergency is Nigeria's lack of leadership. It is what has led to this jackpot syndrome being so attractive. You said I should keep it short. I'll keep it short like that.
All right. Thank you, AB. We need to take a quick breather here, but don't go anywhere. Stay with us, because Freshly Pressed will continue. I just wanted to get your thoughts before going on the break. That's why.
I knew there was a break coming up, so I needed to stop because I had a lot to say about it. But let's.
In fact, it's a topic on its own.
I'm telling you, Gbubemi has said so much that is so correct that I don't need to belabor it. But the state of emergency is on these leaders.
Yeah,
truly,
true, very true.
If we had leadership, why when Boris Johnson got sick with COVID, where did he go?
Exactly.
He went to what's it hospital in Lagos near whatever main hospital, Loof. He went to the Loof of London. But our own people here cannot go anywhere. Nonsense. Let me not start with them this morning. Let me leave them alone. After all, they are still refilling the 100+ cars from the convoy of yesterday. Let me not talk. They're busy.
Honestly.
All right, we're going back live right now.
Let's go.
Hey, welcome back. This is Freshly Pressed on the Smooth Breakfast on Smooth 98.1. My name is Kekere-Ekun, and looking at the stories, giving their analysis this morning, I have Gbubemi and AB with me, and you can also be a part of Freshly Pressed this morning by sending your messages in via WhatsApp on 0809 440 981 0809 440 981. And we're also streaming live on YouTube at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. A message here on WhatsApp from Yinka Bolo, and he says, I still maintain that the federal government needs to do something about the rate at which professionals are exiting. There's no amount of increments in wage that will deter it, no amount. So what's the point? Hence, it leaves one option, and it's going to be a drastic one. Unfortunately, such conversation we are not ready for, or even if we are, we will be sentimental about it. All right. Thank you for your message, Yinka Bolu. AB, let's kick on here and let's check out this from the Vanguard, where the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, the NERC, is awaiting the approval of President Bola Tinubu before a new tariff regime is made public.
This story was bubbling up in the news a few days ago, and based on the components that make up electricity, including gas being now denominated no longer at an official rate, but at a, if you will, floating market rate, it does make sense that electricity is going to cost more. Okay, so, and these companies are in business to make profit, so you can never begrudge them the need to make profit. Here's the thing. I keep hearing about performance, increase in the ability for people to get power, because I argue that Nigerians are already paying a lot more for power than the tariffs would suggest. We pay for repairs of our generator. We pay in terms of being unable to sleep at night. We pay in terms of noise. We pay in terms of pollution. So we're already paying a lot. Now, they're saying that the tariff has been prepared, just like the 114% increase, awaiting approval. 114% increase in salaries and remuneration to office holders. This one too is in a file, it's in the inbox, in tray, keep in view file. I'm just intrigued. So is this how Nigeria is? That it is not the market forces, it's not the economic imperatives, but merely one man's signature, whoever that man may be, that could make or break the policy? Are we that kind of country? So if the president signs it, it becomes law. If he doesn't sign it, the businesses suffer. Is that really how the sector should be organized and managed? Let me tell you, we are all going to have to start making very serious choices about the types of equipment, the loads that we're, actually putting on our system. But before you do this, should we not mandate compulsory metering so that, like my phone, if I do not have credit, I cannot make calls? Why is it possible for someone to come and look at my house and say, this house looks like it should have a bill of 72,000 naira without metering? Before you raise a price, NERC should mandate that every single building should be metered. And the mandate, if anybody bypasses the meter, the punishment should be so harsh and severe that honestly is not even worth doing. So you don't just keep raising prices, which I understand the business imperatives of, but you don't make any comparable commitment to improving access to power. That, I feel, is the gap. People are paying. We've been paying in different ways, maybe not directly in terms of power, but we are paying. Let me understand what I am paying for and have a certain amount of reliability. Then I will now decide what comes on, what comes off, and when, and to be measured fairly through my meter. Stop making those meters things that are just inaccessible to ordinary people. It doesn't make any sense.
All right, let me go to WhatsApp, where Gilbert Musa has sent in a message, and he says, on the state of our healthcare delivery system in Nigeria being ineffective, dates back to 1983. Subsequent leadership have demonstrated insincerity in this sector. As AB said, we indeed need to declare a state of emergency in our leadership in Nigeria. All right, moving on here, Gbubemi. Let's talk about this story from The Guardian, where the federal government is to stop direct funding of professional bodies and councils from 2026. The Director General of Budget Office of the Federation, Ben Akabweze, has disclosed.
I wasn't even aware that the federal government was funding professional bodies and councils, so it came as a surprise.
Right.
I assume that they were all self-funded, and all generated their own income. So I would sort of agree with this. I think this is one of the moves towards decongesting the kind of expenses that the federal government makes. So this should hopefully free up money for other things. But what isn't quite clear from this from this is if in the first instance all the registered professional bodies and councils in Nigeria were being funded from the federal government. I know that for a council to exist, or a professional body, they need to be an act needs to be enacted for them to come into existence. And typically an act is promulgated by the National Assembly and signed by the president. So if the federal government has been funding these professional bodies, it is quite likely that there is somewhere in the act that requires that stated that the federal government should provide some sort of funding for this council. So I did a bit of research. I checked for some of the councils. I didn't quite see any, but I saw for the Legal Aid Council, there was a statement on income coming in from the federal government to support, other income or donations that it could receive. So depending on how it is worded, if there are similar funding statements in the acts of all of these professional bodies and councils, then they would probably need to go to the National Assembly to go and would it be to repeal or to review the acts to remove that requirement so that the federal government can divest fully? So that's on the one side. On the second side, these professional bodies and councils have approximately about 3.5 years to be able to, if the weren't already generating income or if the weren't already thinking of how to generate income, plan as to generate income for themselves. So what that also means is that, they take their future in their hands. So a situation whereby, for example, we had councils probably hiring people that they didn't need, making expenses that they didn't need. Now, if they have to spend from the money that they make, then they may be a bit more circumspect about it. So for professional bodies, associations, maybe like, for medical doctors, pharmacists, architects, HR people, some of these already receive membership dues, when they host conferences as well, they make a bit of money from that. I'm not quite sure, and also subventions from partner organizations. So I'm not quite sure whether that has been adequate for them to be able to run their affairs. Either way, all of these councils will need to start thinking of how to generate a lot more money to ensure that they keep in business. And then maybe some of these councils actually may not need to exist on their own. Maybe there needs to be some sort of merger, I don't know, to be able to enhance effectiveness, of their work.
All right. Now, AB.
I have just a
right,
brief thing. When it comes to some of these councils that exist, like you said, they are part of the art of Nigeria. It has a role in ensuring that after exams are passed by architects, you are registered, you are kept in a register so people know who is actually fit for a purpose. I worry about public safety, but like you said, if they're decongesting the roles of salaries and all that, that's not a bad thing. It's the why. If you are willing to decongest, can you decongest government? I just feel that right now it appears government has decided we're going to free ourselves of all sorts of responsibility for anything except our salaries at 114%. And that is the problem. I have nothing against rationalization. I have nothing against, making things more streamlined and efficient and effective. But I don't see the same thing happening in the roles of government. They just seem to be saying, Nigerians, your lives are in your hands. Find fuel anywhere you find it. Get forex anywhere you get it. Your councils should run as they were. It doesn't appear that government is taking a look in the mirror and saying, we must, in fact, lead the charge in efficiency. And that is my problem. But hey, maybe freed of government's overwhelming burden, some of these councils can become more vibrant and meaningful to both the professionals and society at large.
All right, let me go to WhatsApp, take a couple of messages. Anthony, Tony says, these are countries that have placed the premium on the health of her citizens. Whatever is wrong with our government investing in our health sector and have the advantage of citizens of other countries coming to Nigeria on health tourism. We rather have a topsy-turvy situation where our politicians run out to be treated outside our shores and sometimes by Nigerians who emigrated to those countries. So sad. Cruz says, Cruz is really surprised and says, really, with very surprised emojis, that professional bodies were being funded by the federal government. So what have these bodies been doing with dues received from members? I am super surprised. Niger, I hail. Ajayi says, good morning, Ayo. There's absolutely no justification for any increase in electricity tariff at this time. Instead of the discourse to think of how to improve supply of power, they continuously look for ways to fraudulently charge consumers for services not rendered. Imagine Kekere-Electric giving me a bill of about 140,000 naira for a period of 28 days, during which I was waiting for a single phase prepaid meter that I have paid for to be installed. Wow, 140,000.
You see what I'm saying?
These are the issues. All right, we've actually run out of time and we've come to the end of Freshly Pressed this morning. Thank you so much, Gbubemi and AB, for joining me to analyze all the stories this morning.
The pleasure is all mine.
The pleasure and privilege were mine.
All right, do have a great Thursday and a great rest of the week ahead.
You too.
All right, Lagos, we've come to the end, but hey, stick around because so much more to come. 8:15, it'll be time for the grapevine. And at 9 o'clock, we'll get right into Lagos Talks. We're going to get talking. So stick around and keep listening. This is Smooth 98.1.